Let's make the EVA pattern. So if you guys are completely new to sewing, I have a video dedicated especially on how to print and assemble PDF patterns. I'll put a little card at the top of this video. And also, if you like to use a projector for your sewing, I found that the copy shop file of the EVA pattern works really well on the pattern projector website. I'll put a link to that in the description bar below. Great thing about all the files on the EVA pattern is that they are layered. You can select a specific size or sizes that you actually want to sew. So your purchase comes with all of the sizes, but whenever you're actually printing your pattern or projecting your pattern, you can use the layer tool to select the specific size you want to see. Your pattern purchase comes with all of the sizes. I'll have a link to the EVA pattern in the comments below, or you can visit the website rosypeñapattern.com and use the code EVALOVE at checkout and you'll get 20% off the pattern. Now we can use our pattern pieces to cut out our fabric. I like to use these large washers. I just get them from my local home improvement store to weigh down my pattern. I use chalk to mark those center back notches, and then I'm going to place my center back pieces with right sides facing, and I'm going to clip along the center back. I'm going to do the same thing to the ties. Take your fabric to your sewing machine and you're going to sew using a stretch stitch and 1/2 inch seam allowance along the center back seams that we just clipped. Now you want to take your center back with the right sides facing up, and you're going to place your front over your back, right sides together, and you're going to clip along both side seams. You're going to take your ties and you're going to fold it onto itself with the wrong sides facing. You're just going to press a crease along that center line all the way across the ties. Take your fabric to your sewing machine and you're going to sew along both side seams, again using a stretch stitch and 1/2 inch seam allowance. I like to use a walking foot whenever I'm sewing with knit, and I'll put a card above to my previous video where I gave you a lot of great tips on how to sew with knits. Now we're going to attach our band to our top. So you want to pin all layers of the band center seam to the right side of the top center back seam, with the raw edges of all layers flush and pointing up. You want to slightly stretch the band along one side of the back to the front neck marking. You want to stretch, not tug, the band evenly every time you clip. Repeat that to the other side, this time working in the opposite direction. Follow step number 5 on your pattern instructions and make a small snip through all layers within the seam allowance to meet the neck point marking. Make sure you don't clip beyond the stitching. Then you want to press the band seam allowance down towards the top and the band up away from the top. Then you just seamlessly tuck in the remaining seam allowance at the neck point and along the entire length of the ties. Top stitch along the ties until you meet the neck point. And this step is optional, but you can top stitch along the band, catching that seam allowance underneath. Try on your top and determine how much you want to hem the top. Then you're just going to fold that hem over and sew it in place. You usually don't want to pull your fabric, especially when you're working with knits, from the back. You want to let your sewing machine just guide it through, but sometimes it does need a little bit more help. Just slightly guide the fabric, but don't tug on it. I'm just going to tie a knot at the end of the ties and then just cut off that extra fabric. Lastly, just create a cross wrap around the front neck of the ties and make a bow at the back, adjusting to fit as needed. And that's it, you're all done with the EVA top. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to grab your EVA pattern. I'll have it linked in the description bar below as well as in the comments. And use the code EVALOVE at checkout for 20% off the pattern.